The media is impossible at the moment. You've got the pro-Trump outlets that are like Fox that are completely running cover on everything around this war, cheerleading it entirely. Then you've got like the New York Times and other outlets that hate Trump, that see everything in the least favorable light to the president. And even I, as a critic of the war, I'm not so critical that I would rely on the New York Times, right? Like I'll look at them, I'll look at everybody, but it's very hard to find information that you really can trust, right? Because our president definitely tries to manipulate the media, like every other president we've had. And the media is trying to manipulate its audiences like full bore right now on all fronts. So it's been a challenge getting information.
Yeah, the media's in a really difficult position right now. I mean, they've been talking to us for a very long time about how we have to be more involved in something like Ukraine, for example. And now, because President Trump wants to be involved with Iran, they kind of have to take the opposite position and say we shouldn't be involved in
Right.
these conflicts. I
Right.
mean, it
They're
is a
suddenly
complicated
non-interventionist.
world. Have some sympathy for them, Megyn. This is really hard to figure out on a day-to-day basis. You have to oppose Trump, but you have to. I mean, like, this is just what they're in the middle of. And I think President Trump. Like I think you hit on something there, which is the debate, and I think it's an interesting question here because it's much broader than how you feel about Israel. Like you might think Israel's the greatest country on earth, and they're totally justified. I think if I was living in Iran, in Israel, and I was an Israeli talk show host, I would be pretty convinced that Iran was a real threat to me, and taking out someone like the Ayatollah would, I think, be pretty justified. We certainly, I think, have an argument as Pete was making there as well. But the line here, this is something that I don't think I would have. I don't think it's a place I would have been 20 or 30 years ago, because going through the Iraq situation had me rethinking things a little bit on this front, and sort of trying to set out that dynamic of justification versus necessity, right? Like I think we have a really good
Interesting.
argument that taking on Iran is justified. What Pete's saying was true. Like they really outside of our
There's
direct
scores to be
conflicts.
settled.
There are. I mean, there's heavy reporting on the potential of them trying to take out multiple officials here in the United States, including Donald Trump and John Bolton, two people who can't stand each other these days. You go back and you look at, of course. I mean, I did deep research. I want you to know. I went back and watched Argo. With Ben Affleck, Megyn. Yes, I did. And in that movie, that Hollywood wanted you to make sure you understood that Iran was bad, so they were on that side. I don't know. I go back and forth on this. By the way, freaking great movie. It's a great movie,
It is
no
a great
matter
movie.
what. It is a
Ben
great
Affleck
movie.
is
I stand by
incredibly
it.
irritating, but that was a great movie.
It really is. But you remember, there's a long history, and what's interesting about that history, 1979. I mean, Donald Trump's, I think, 33 years old when this all goes down, somewhere in that area. Like this is, as he's becoming, an adult and building his business empire, we're kind of just starting to become aware of him as a national figure. This is the story, right? This is the story at that time. And Iran has a long history of murdering Americans. This is not just a thing. This is not like, oh gosh, this is some country. This is a country that, outside of our direct wars that we've been in, has killed more Americans than any other nation state. They did
They're
this
always on the other
during.
side.
Yeah,
Always.
exactly. This is so we have real justification, I think, to have a massive problem with this country. The question, though, and I think this is where I got with Iraq. When we were in Iraq initially, I mean, people forget they were firing at our jets on like a daily basis before that war started, and that is a justification, absolutely, for us to be able to go to war. The question, though, is it a necessity at that time? Can you find? I think it was an opportunity. The question was is it a necessity with Iran? And an opportunity. I have no love for the Iranian regime. I am happy the Ayatollah is not there anymore. I really hope this turns out really well. But if we go to an expanded situation where this lasts for a long time, questions wind up becoming problems quickly, and it's hard to back out of that stuff. And that is the sort of thing I think a lot of Trump supporters believed we wouldn't get involved in. And perhaps we're not. We're only a week or so into this. Perhaps this is he's got a more limited effort and mind. But it's hard to know, and I think that's part of your criticism. Some that I would have of the president's approach to this is I would love to know a little bit more. I'd love to have a little bit more explanation. Wise, I know he can't lay out the entire battle plan, but it is important for the American people to understand if this is an important, if it is a necessity and not just a justified conflict. I'd like to be, a little more information to push us over that line.
Well, I mean, you look back at what happened before the Iraq War, and we had months of debate on it. We had tons of debate on that, on whether we should go in. Afghanistan too, and the people at least got a fair vetting. It wound up having majority support in the U.S. Congress. The Iraq War did, which is kind of crazy to think back on, which was very wrong, and we should not have done the Iraq War. I mean, I think virtually everyone understands that now. WMD was a lie. They did not exist, whatever. It was an intel failure at a minimum. But we did debate it. And there were two sides, and they're actually the this is bullshit side was there. They were represented. They were overruled. They weren't considered persuasive. But on this, we just haven't had the debate at all. And now we've launched something that I don't know where it's going. I mean, many people think this is the beginning of World War III. I'm not there yet, but I see terror warnings coming across the transom just as we went to air. This just hit, Stu. This is via ABC News. Stand by. Okay, the headline is, the U.S. has intercepted encrypted communications believed to have originated in Iran that may serve as an operational trigger, that's in quotes, for, quote, sleeper assets outside of Iran, according to a federal government alert sent to law enforcement agencies. It goes on to say, the intercepted transmission was encoded and appeared to be destined for, quote, clandestine recipients who possess the encryption key, the kind of message intended to impart instructions to covert operatives or sleeper assets without the use of the internet or cellular networks. It's possible the transmissions could be intended to activate or provide instructions to pre-position sleeper assets operating outside of the originating country, said the alert. That we were not going to get that. That was not happening 9 days ago. That is obviously a response to what we've done with Israel in Iran. And I realize many people think worth it. I don't happen to be one of them. I don't want to have to deal with the United States becoming Israel, where we have to worry about getting blown up at your random cafe, or our kids have to worry about walking to school safely. That wasn't us 10 days ago. And this isn't the only one. We saw that shooting down in Austin, Texas, by that guy who seemed like a loon, but he was wearing the Allah sweatshirt and the Iranian flag on his person. Now this weekend, we see this protest outside of Mamdani's mansion, the mayor's mansion in New York, with two people whose parents are naturalized U.S. citizens throwing an IED at cops because the protesters there were protesting against New York becoming more radically Muslim. And these obviously were people sympathetic toward the other side, which was also represented at the counter protest. In any event, you and I both see what's happening here. There is a powder keg that has been placed. It's been sort of drizzled all over certain pockets of the United States in the wake of our military action in Iran. And I'm just totally against it. I am not in favor of using the military in a way that's not defensive. This didn't feel defensive to me, but the point is simply now we're going to have to deal with it. And now we're going to see more and more of these homegrown domestic terror attacks. And yet we're still being told by some that to even discuss it is considered unpatriotic.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you have to factor in. And, look, if the president wasn't doing that, he's not doing his job, right? He has to be able to do that. And I'm sure he's taken this into consideration. He's, in his public speaking, he's talked about the possibility of casualties. This is not some game, right? It's not some jokey thing. It's not just some easy thing. This is a country that has, a built-up military. It has been decimated to some degree. I do think they have been weakened. They do have these affiliates around the world that have been weakened, especially around the Middle East leading up to this. And I think that's why Israel, as well as the United States, saw an opportunity here, maybe a point of weakness. I would love to see the Iranian people rise up and do what President Trump has asked of them to take this over and turn the country into not only something that I think is not a negative influence on the rest of the world, but also not a negative influence on their people. I would love to see them
Stu, let me
have
ask
the
you this.
freedom
I would
they
love that
want,
too, but how can they do it? Like, people are criticizing them right
difficult.
now for not going to the streets and doing what they did in mid-January. It's like, well, we're bombing their cities. I mean, we're bombing the hell out of them. They can't go out in the streets, and we've told them not
No.
to.
Mhm.
But how, as a practical matter, can they, with the IRGC running that country with its guns? I mean, there are thousands, tens of thousands of IRGC, or Iranian Guard, and the
I mean,
Iranians don't have guns. Unlike Americans, they don't have guns. So, like, as a practical matter, how does it happen?
first of all, I would like to note your argument for the Second Amendment, which is, of course, why
Totally.
it exists. This is a
I'm in favor of the Second
really,
Amendment.
really important part of this, because this is the type of stuff that would be difficult to that regime is very difficult to implement in a place like the United States. It's not just some, I think the human
Yeah.
condition is tilted towards tyranny, right? It's been the
And we
entire
have the First
history of
Amendment
the
too.
world.
That's another piece of
Yeah.
the weaponry
hmm
against an oppressive government.
Massively crucial. And the reason why you don't give your people a Second Amendment, like almost every country on earth has not, is so that if you're in this situation, they can't rise up. So it is really, really difficult. It probably is going to be a massive loss of life if they do it. Of course, that is up to them. Many people in that country are brave enough and may very well do it. I wouldn't be shocked if they do. And I think President Trump has outlined this as well as many officials of like, hey, you're right. This isn't the time. You might want to wait a little while until the bombs stop dropping. And that's what's been interesting about Trump's continued. Again, I'm critical of his communication here because I'm citing some things he's saying, and he said some things that are kind of disagreeing with this. But this idea of it being, several weeks, not several years, it's impossible to project that with any level of specificity. And that's, I think, one of the parts that makes me very nervous about this effort, right? Like I'm nervous that we're going to be able to stick to that. But
Well, we didn't
if
go into
what we
Iraq
have
thinking it was going to be several years. We have it on tape.
exactly.
Everybody promising it was going to be days, weeks, possibly, said Cheney. It wound up being almost 9 years, 8 years and 8 months. International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital currency. There's a never-ending list of reasons gold has risen over 700% in the last 20 years. And a never-ending list of reasons smart Americans diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals with Birch Gold Group. Gold can thrive during uncertainty, which is why it's a crucial part of a balanced financial strategy. It gives you peace of mind, given all the events that could impact the U.S. economy. See if holding gold in a tax-sheltered retirement account is right for you. Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. Just text MK to the number 989898 to receive your free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, consider letting Birch Gold help you diversify with gold so you too can have peace of mind, regardless of the uncertainty. Text MK to the number 989898.
This is why you try to stay out of war, right? Because it is very difficult, even though you could come up
Unless
with all
it's,
the
as you say,
justifications.
necessary. That's the good
Right.
word.
Yeah, yeah, that's a huge, I think, determining factor here. When you look at this and you kind of you step back, there's so many considerations, right? You heard Marjorie Taylor Greene outlined a bunch of them, right? There's a lot of things that the president has to deal with, and we are months away from an election. I can tell you, $120 a barrel oil is going to be significant in that election if it sticks around there. Yeah, and we can all say, yeah, well, it'll come down soon, and maybe it will, but you're taking a lot of unknowns and you're inserting them into an already difficult situation. And the only time you ever want to do that is when you absolutely have to.
You have
And
no
that is,
choice.
I think, the legitimate criticism here is, while there was opportunity and while I think there was justification, the necessity is the question there. And I think if you can't tick off all three of those boxes, you try to stay out of the conflict because of all the unknowns you're bringing up, Megyn.
Yeah, you don't want quagmire, and you don't want to jeopardize American service personnel's lives. We lost yet another American service personnel, a seventh now. That's 7 American dead as a result of this war, and you don't want to jeopardize the safety of Americans here at home, kids and others
Yeah.
who they come for the soft targets. I lived this. I'm not a spring chicken. I lived this. I started at Fox News in 2004. I started in news in 2003, but I was at Fox the entire time during the war on terror. And we did all the things that people want you to do as a Republican, to support the war, support the president, put the casualties in context, give the president the benefit of the doubt and his emissaries when they say things like they're a WMD. I did it all. I did it personally. And I'm just not prepared to do that again. I have an enormous dose of skepticism around all war messaging and around all war in a way that I did not before, because I lived it and I watched Americans have to deal with it on the homeland time and time again. No one thinks that our armed forces cannot defeat Iran's. Of course, obviously, we have the greatest, bravest, and best military in the world, bar none. It's a question of what they will do in response, like attack our adversaries and effectively turn them, yes, against Iran. Of course, they're already against Iran in the Middle East, but also against us for not defending them adequately, for not getting enough interceptors over there to protect them against the missiles, but we don't have enough. That's why President Trump was meeting with the defense contractors at the White House on Friday, but they don't turn around fast. It's not easy to make these things, and it's also extremely expensive. And their ability is like that of ISIS and Al Qaeda. It's homegrown terror attacks. It's things like that ABC News report, which we do need to worry about. But we'll get to that in a second, because there's more warnings on the domestic terror front. You said it's not a game, and I agree with you. And I don't think President Trump sees it as a game at all. I think he's taking it very seriously. However, one of the main people in his ear seems to think it's like a game, and that is Lindsey Graham, who is a villain in this whole thing. A villain. Listen to him over the weekend. He is frothing at the mouth on Fox Business Sunday. I think it's SOT 3 or 4, Deb. You play the right one.
Israel and the United States, you just wait to see what comes in the next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks meaning what?
We're going to blow the hell out of these people.
Okay. He's jubilant. I would be remiss if I did not mention the Jesse Kelly response to this on X, which was, calm down. He might not be talking about weapons. Okay, that was funny. You have to laugh where you can. But then he followed up with this in SOT 4.
If we get in a fight, I want to win it. I want to win it quick. I'm in Miami. You see this hat? Free Cuba. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
The liberation of Cuba is upon us. We're marching through the world. We're cleaning out the bad guys. Iran is going down, and Cuba is next.
We're marching through the world and cleaning out the bad guys? No, who voted for that? No one voted for that. Trump ran on keeping us out of war, especially out of a Middle East war. And now you've got this lunatic saying we're marching through the world and taking down all the bad guys? No one elected you to do that. And no one elected President Trump to do that either. And I actually don't think that's on President Trump's agenda. I think on Iran, he was manipulated by people like Lindsey Graham. And I know that thanks to the Wall Street Journal that did a deep dive on it being Lindsey Graham, General Jack Keane, and my old pal Mark Thiessen from Fox News, who were primarily in his ear pushing, in addition to Bibi Netanyahu, pushing for this war. But your thoughts on Lindsey Graham and his messaging there, Stu?
Well, Megyn, it's been known for a while that Lindsey Graham sucks in every way imaginable. I'm not a fan of him, and one of the worst parts about Lindsey Graham is he's not the senator from Vermont or Maine or Massachusetts. Like, we could actually have a good Republican senator from South Carolina. We could get one elected. We've done it before. Could do it again. I don't understand the whole Lindsey Graham thing. He seems to be a one-issue guy, which is continually pushing for this sort of international involvement in every way possible. Yeah, it's constant with him. He is who he is. He's been pretty consistent on this. I mean, he ran for president as a one-issue candidate, right, to push the United States towards these types of arguments. So I guess I'll give him points for consistency. But that's not where Donald Trump has been. Trump has been, fighting against this for the entire time. I mean, this has been, he hasn't been anti-war. I don't think that's fair to say. I think he doesn't like war. He doesn't like that sort of involvement. But he is interested in having the United States have an influence on the world. I've been workshopping this, and why not roll it out on one of the biggest shows in the world? But tell me if you think if I have anything here. One of the arguments against U.S. involvement around the world, kind of from a more libertarian perspective over the years, has been this idea that we don't want to be the world's policeman. And that is like something I think is an inaccurate way of phrasing what they were criticizing, which was really like more like the Iraq War and more like getting involved in everything everywhere and putting up shop for 10, 20 years in a country and trying to nation build. And the world's policeman got summarized to that. In a way, it feels like Trump, in a way, has actually embraced a more specific example of being the world's policeman. He does seem to want to get involved in a lot of these things, but quickly. Like a police officer doesn't come in and set up shop in the hallway of an apartment building for 10 years, right?
Moves in with you.
They come in, they deal with the issue going on, and they get out and give you a chance to live your life. I mean, what happened in Venezuela is really an interesting example of that, right? Maduro was, again, very justified that we would have a problem with him and be involved in that situation. He saw an opportunity and went in there, took him out. And, I would much more prefer a different leader there than Delcy, who I think is terrible. And likely the second Trump's out of office is going to be back to exactly who Maduro was. But, he seems to be okay with taking care of an issue and then stepping back. And that gives you maybe some hope for what we're going to see here in Iran.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.